Hi. For today's quick cybersecurity topic, let's talk about really everyone's favorite thing to do in the industry, identity and access management. Particularly, let's talk about the question of who should have access to what and how you can manage that. This topic has a few different names in the cybersecurity business. Some will call this least privilege access. You'll see that used, for example, in the maritime cybersecurity standards issued by the Coast Guard. You may see this described as role-based access. You'll see it in the NIST standards under AC2, the NIST 800 TAC 53 cybersecurity standards. You'll see it as group and role membership. The basic idea of this is, okay, so you've logged in, we know who you are, what should you be able to get into? And in an environment that's still maturing, you'll see lots of example problems like this. Like, for example, you go onto a shared drive and you'll see that there are folders with certain sensitive information in them, and that there are individual people with permission to view or modify the data in there. So after a while, and the organization gets big enough, you start asking, who are these people and why do they have permission to be here? And that's where you need to start thinking about role-based access. So I have found a useful structured way of thinking about it is individuals have job roles. These are things that they need to do in order to perform their job function. They can have more than one, and it's not necessarily their HR title. You may have somebody who's an engineering analyst. That's great. What does an engineering analyst need access to? Depends a lot on what engineering they're analyzing. They could be, for example, a pipeline project analyst on a certain field, a certain area of pipelining in a certain field for your company. So that would be a role, and that would be distinct from if they were working on compressor stations in another part of the company, or if they were working with solar power or something. So they wouldn't need access to all those engineering plans because they don't work on them. So you would describe this as being, this person's an engineering analyst, this person's an engineering analyst, but this person has a role called engineering analyst, pipeline projects, Western Field. So the role is specific enough to say why they need access to that stuff. So the next step, well, the first step is to define this into a matrix. The simplest way to do this is in a spreadsheet where, for example, all the rows are individuals and all the columns are job roles. And you may have at the top a description of what the job role actually is or something like that. So great, now you've got the people in job roles. Still, why does he need access to this folder? So that's the other part, is applying access to resources. Now you could, at the most basic, say, on this folder, this job role needs access. And you can go into your Active Directory, you can make a group for that, and then you can go into your shared folder permissions and say, okay, this group has read-write permissions on this folder. That's good. That still makes it harder down the road for you to audit it, though. And that becomes important if you're operating under, for example, NERC Critical Infrastructure Protection, NERC CIP, CIP 4, where under requirement 4.3, you have to audit your individual permissions and group memberships. So I find it helpful to have two layers to this matrix. Kind of think of it like two tabs in a spreadsheet. So layer one is people have roles. Layer two is roles have access. So you define a group of accesses, a group of things that generally would be accessed together. So for example, we were talking about a shared folder that maybe has the CAD drawings for some pipeline projects. There may be a related folder that has, I don't know, lists of materials, different grades of metal in your pipelines or something. So those are both very similar resources. These are both parts of the engineering plans for putting together a pipeline project, and basically everybody, all the same people are going to need access to both of them. So you would call that an access group, or you could have certain software systems where similar software on 5 different servers and generally used for related the same tasks by the same people all the time. So you would say, we're just going to group those applications together. That's an access group. Somebody just needs access to that group of things. So you define that as an access. And in this case, it would be Pipeline Projects West, all the access that you need for that. So you create an entry for that. And so on the second tab of your spreadsheet, your imaginary spreadsheet, you would have in the rows, here are the different roles, that we've defined previously. And then here are the different accesses that they need access to. Then underneath that, you may have a different section which says in this access column, here's all the different stuff that they might get access to listed down below, so that way you can keep track of it. So then if in this shared drive example, if you went back and you looked at one of those shared folders, you would say, who has access to this folder? You would pull up the access sharing settings, and you would see that access belongs to this group called Access Pipeline Projects West. So you say, okay, that's cool. So you look at that group, okay, who needs to access Pipeline Projects West? And there would be different roles in it. There would be a role of engineering technicians for Pipeline Projects West. There would be a role of maybe the project management office, maybe the engineering supervisors, different job roles, different people who need to get that data, and other roles that don't are not in there. So this makes your situation much more auditable in the future because somebody can own that set of storage and they can say, yes, all these job roles still need to be in it. We're good. Somebody can own the definition of the job roles and say, yes, all these people, or maybe their supervisors can say, all these people still do indeed have these job roles. So you're sort of breaking down the auditing into manageable chunks so that you don't have to go through your entire environment and re-ask this question of, why do these people need to be in this folder? And that's really the goal. So also, it's very handy because if one of those people quits or gets reassigned to a different role and they don't need that anymore, or somebody else comes in, you have the ability to very efficiently move those permissions around by just putting a different person into the role. So that's the basic idea of role-based access.